Thank you, Michael. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker for this evening. She is a senior advisor and VSO liaison for the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. She is an advocate for our veterans, military families, and Gold Star families. She is the proud graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. Wait, this ain't right. Who wrote this thing? Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, she was a graduate of the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm sure she's going to tend to you later. After serving 17 years in the Navy, she co-founded the Dixon Center, where she served as president for 5 years. She also served as a consultant to the Department of Defense for 3 years, assigned to the Department of Defense 50-year Vietnam War Commemoration Committee. In 2017, she became the first non-Vietnam veteran president and CEO of Veterans Village of San Diego, where she led a robust team for almost 3 years. She has served on numerous boards and committees to include the Kaplan Public Service Foundation, Infinite Hero Foundation, my goodness, Woody Williams Foundation, Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, the Advisory Committee for the Iraq-Afghanistan Veterans of America, and on the Department of Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee for Homeless Veterans. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Miss Kimberly Mitchell.
Good evening, everyone. How are you all? I will tell you, that is one of the best introductions I've ever gotten. That is like the man with the golden voice. That is spectacular, but thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you so much to the Honor Flight Network for inviting me here this evening. Anytime I get a chance to come out and speak and meet people and just really connect with them and thank them for all that they do and all that they do for our veterans and making sure that they have a positive impact is just a joy for me. Plus, it gets me out of the house, it gets me away from my desk, it gets me away from the computer. And anytime I get to hang out with Matt Schumann, right? When Matt says, can you do something? You just always say yes. And then you ask, like, what do I owe now? So anyway, so here we are. Here we are at the Honor Flight Network Summit. And so I'm going to tell you a little story that I always like to start out with about 6 service members that went up to heaven. And those 6 service members, you know, there was Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guardsman, and Space Force Guardian. And they do what we all do as veterans, and we bicker back and forth as to who the best service is. You know, you had the Air Force who always said, aim high, look at the sky, you know, hanging out in the sky and doing whatever Air Force does. Then you had the Marines marching, looking for the next chow line, eating all the food, taking up all the gym time. Yeah, the Army kind of like figuring out, like, I don't even know what Army says to stay motivated because, you know what, it's Army. Coast Guard looking for the next drug interdiction folks to stop the drugs coming into the United States and looking for the next puddle to wade through. And then you had Space Force just trying to figure out what everybody else is doing because they're brand spanking new, so they're still like in toddler clothes learning how to march. And then you had the Navy keeping everybody in line and on time. Because that's what we do. Anyway, we get up to, we had these 6 service members get up to heaven, and they get to the gate in St. Peter, and they're like, St. Peter, solve this for us. Who is the best service? And he's like, this is way above my pay grade. He goes, I'll be right back. So he takes off. He comes back, and he's carrying a note with him. And he sits there, and he says, and he reads it. He says, all of you have had a positive impact on the lives of those who you served. All of you have made a difference in your community. All of you have served well and honorably. Come in, rest. You deserve it. Sign God, United States Navy, retired. That is a true story, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to take you on a small journey of my life. And I think I had where's the remote? On the podium. I always like to start that joke because, one, it helps break the ice, lets you all kind of relax a little bit and realize that I'm not your typical government federal speaker up here on the stage. I'm going to take you on a little journey. In May of 1972, when the North Vietnamese were advancing into Quang Tri, the South Vietnamese Marine and his company were assigned to evacuate the village and blow up the My Chang Bridge just south of the village. And right before they blew up the bridge, one last survivor stumbled across the bridge carrying a bundle. And when they went to investigate, that bundle was a baby wrapped up in a towel and placed in a hat. And they said, is this your child? And he said, no, I found the child lying alongside the road, trying to nurse on her dead mother. But I can't go any further. So I need you to take this child to the orphanage in Da Nang, the Sacred Heart Orphanage, and give this child to the nuns and save this baby's life. So this South Vietnamese Marine did as many Marines do, and they kind of just take things into their own hands and just do what needs to be done to accomplish a mission. Commandeered the company jeep and drove this child from Quang Tri down to Da Nang, where he presented the child to the nuns. And they said, what's her name? She doesn't have a name. And they said, well, you brought her, you give her a name. And he said, I'm going to name her what I was going to name my first daughter, which was Tran Thi Ngoc Bic, meaning precious pearl. A few months later, a U.S. airman who was stationed at the air base in Da Nang did as many service members did during that time and brought over books and clothes and food and toys to the children at the orphanage to spend some time with them. And one day, when this Air Force sergeant brought over some clothes and some supplies, they placed baby number 899 into his arms, and he fell in love. In September of '72, I was fortunate enough to be adopted and brought to the United States to start my new life as an American. In the next 6 years, we were an Air Force family, so we, moved around the country, went from Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, New Mexico, to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, and then we moved up to northern Wisconsin. Because everybody should live in northern Wisconsin, where it is freezing cold 11 months out of the year. The wood ticks are gigantic, about the size of robins, and there's cheese curds. The best thing about Wisconsin. But I remember telling my parents, I'm like, Wisconsin? I was born in a warm tropical climate. What am I going to do in Wisconsin? You're going to play basketball. You're going to work at the Dairy Queen. You're going to raise cattle on a farm. You're going to do what American kids do. And you're going to fit in, and you're going to be great at it. And you're going to live a life and do the best that you can do. And I did. I ended up playing basketball, worked at the Dairy Queen. I still have the record for the largest freestanding ice cream cone at the Solon Springs Dairy Queen. I raised cattle. I raised the Grand Champion beef steer in 1986 for the Douglas County Fair. But I knew I had a life of service. I wanted to serve my country. I knew that it was what I was meant to do. Well, maybe I was very attracted to structure, routines, schedules, and uniforms. Really like those. Not having to decide what to put on every day was kind of a cool thing. And so I decided I wanted to go to the United States Naval Academy, and that's where I applied to go. And thank God I was accepted, because it got me out of northern Wisconsin. But 2 weeks before I reported to the Naval Academy, my father was struck by lightning and killed on our farm. And I talk about that because it's important for the people that I connect with in the audience to know that I understand what can happen to a family when a tragic incident happens. And I understand how fragile a family structure can be when something like that happens. Thank God the Naval Academy recognized the fact that I needed some time at home with the family, so they gave me a year off. So even though I went through plebe summer, I decided to leave at the end of plebe summer, went home, took care of my mom and my brother and the farm, and they readmitted me back with the class of 96, and ended up graduating in 96 and became a surface warfare officer, where the next 17 years I spent on ship, at shore. Most of my shore duty was in some place called the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., where everybody who was in the military, some people like to avoid that place, some people like to be there. I thought it was a building with the added dimension called the Fifth Side. So it was a very unique experience, but my last 2 years, I had the honor of a lifetime, getting to work for Admiral Mike Mullen, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and in that capacity, I was a deputy for the Office of Warrior and Family Support, where we traveled to over 329 communities working with educators, employers, and healthcare providers, and really taking a look at what the challenges of reintegration are for our veterans, our service members, our military families, and our Gold Star families, and what it is that means long-term and sustained reintegration after service. In 2012, I had the opportunity to leave the Navy at 17 years, and a lot of people are like, I can't believe you left 3 years early from retirement. But I had to. I had to because I had to follow my heart and do something that I knew that where I could have more impact, and that was co-founding a nonprofit that worked with communities to continue the work that I had done on the Joint Staff working for Admiral Mullen, to continue working with those communities and those people and those organizations like Honor Flight Network, to really help help our veterans realize that there are communities of people who care about the service and care about the impact that they've had on this world. So in 2017, as it was said in my bio, I went out to San Diego. First time I'd ever been to San Diego, never been stationed out there, so I went out to San Diego to be the CEO of Veterans Village of San Diego. And if you've ever talked with a homeless veteran and you hear their story, you can really find out what loss of hope, loss of family, loss of connection really truly is, and what is it that they need to get back up on their feet again. In 2020, I was asked to step down from VVSD because of a great opportunity that kind of came flying my way, and that was to be the senior vice president at National University, to help them create educational programs for our service members, our veterans, our military spouses, because education is the basis for reintegration. Whether it's a degree, I don't care if it's an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD, a doctorate, or if it's a certification, going to go get your CDL and and get your truck driver license, or go to culinary art school. It is some sort of a basis of education coupled with meaningful employment and access to health care. So that was a great opportunity for me until this past April, which, life was, when life is going great, all of a sudden a new opportunity comes up to have more impact. And that opportunity came when the White House and the Department of Veterans Affairs gave me a call to ask me to come over and work with Secretary McDonough to be a senior advisor as a VSO liaison, and I said yes, because it's all about having an impact to do more for our veterans. And that's what we're doing at the Department of Veterans Affairs right now. We have a mission right now to serve more veterans, provide more care, deliver more care, more benefits to more veterans than ever before. The Secretary reminds us each and every single day that we're to fight like hell for our veterans, that our veterans, our military families, our caregivers and survivors have sacrificed and served for us, and now it's our time to serve for them. So there's a couple things that I'd like to talk about tonight that the VA has, and many of you have heard of them. The first one is the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson promise to address comprehensive toxics, otherwise known as PACT Act. Many of you have seen a lot of information, a lot of advertisements about the PACT Act. The PACT Act is one of the biggest things that happen for our veteran community. It's generations from Vietnam to post 9/11 now have access to health care and benefits that when they were exposed to toxic gases and fumes and toxins from service. And it's an amazing benefit. And I put the QR code there, and if you happen to have a smartphone, that will take you right to our website, va.gov/PACT. And that is the website. If you meet veterans in your journeys on your honor flights, and if they've never heard about PACT, I guarantee you those that are on your honor flights, probably at least 90% of them are now qualified for PACT Act benefits. They need to apply and get those services and that care that they deserve and that they've earned. And the great thing about the PACT Act is there are 23 presumptives. And now I would tell you, I'm not a medical doctor, and I'm not a medical technician, anything. So a presumptive, I was like, what is that? And what it is before, if a veteran came to the VA, they had to prove that they were in a certain condition, in a certain place, at a certain time, and they had to connect those dots, right? You probably all know what I'm talking about, especially if you've talked to veterans or you are a veteran. This time, these 23 presumptives, if they have them and it's in their record that they were served during a specific time in a certain location, it's automatically assumed that those presumptives were service connected. And it's prioritized when they file a claim. That's amazing. That alone will save lives. And that's what we're all about at VA, saving lives. A lot of people say, how do they file a claim? And if they've been previously denied, they need to file because everything is now going to be considered under the new law. And we've had a lot of veterans say, well, I filed before and was denied. But I ask that you, when you talk with these veterans, to please encourage them to file again. We're hiring so many people. We've had over 300,000 veterans now file for PACT Act claims since August 10th. And we know that there's millions more that are now eligible for PACT Act services. And I asked the National Cemetery Administration for some slides because there's some amazing benefits and services available to veterans that not many veterans are aware of. If they're a veteran. And I've put a couple pictures up here on the slide. You can see the burial flags. The burial flags are available at no cost to the veteran to either drape across a casket or accompany an urn. You have presidential memorial certificates. Eligible veterans, if you can get one. I know we got one when my father passed away, and I did not know how we got it. It just kind of showed up at the house. But every member of the family is eligible for a presidential memorial certificate, and that all of these benefits are available, and you can read about them on, again, our va.gov website, and you just scroll down to memorial and burials link, and that'll show up, and it'll show you how to apply for all of these things. And it's just a great resource. And here's just, I know it's a wordy slide, and I kind of didn't want to put it in, but it kind of just shows you the eligibility of some of these benefits that the NCA offers to so many of our veterans that many of them just don't know about. And then our national, state, and tribal cemeteries span all over the United States. So I know you can't read the words because I can't read the words and I have my glasses on, but as you can see from the dots, there are a lot of cemeteries all over the United States. So that means that chances are when a veteran passes away, there is a national, state, or tribal cemetery very, very close to the location. And so one of the things that I like to do every year, and I'm honored that there's a team here, is from the Old Glory Yellow Ribbon Honor Flight. And I've had the opportunity to meet the veterans that have gone on the Old Glory Yellow Ribbon Honor Flight, the Vietnam veterans from Wisconsin. And one of the stories that I like to tell is about a veteran that I met on that honor flight. And, you know, I will get up and, you know, they'll ask me to get up and tell my story on the flight. And I tell you, when you're a speaker, there's something about having an audience that's all buckled in and can't get away from you. It's actually kind of cool. But let's just say they're a very attentive audience. And one of the first flights that I had the honor of being on, I got to tell my story. And if you've known that when you go on these honor flights, as you know, all the different memorials. And so afterwards, I went and shook all their hands. And this one veteran, he grabbed hold of my hand and he just pulled it in. And he was sitting in the middle seat, so I kind of had to reach over the aisle row. And I said what I said to all the veterans on the honor flight, and I said, "Thank you for your service, sir. Welcome home." And he just held my hand, and he was looking down, and he finally looked up, and he had tears in his eyes. And he said, "Kim," he said, "you know, I thought this day couldn't get any better. For the first time, I was able to get to Washington, D.C. I'd never been to Washington, D.C. And he said, we had people hugging us and thanking us from the moment we got off the plane." He said, that alone was just amazing. And he said, then I got to go to the wall. I've never been to the wall. I got to find the names of the brothers that I served with. And we got to go to Arlington National Cemetery and see the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. He says, all these things I never thought I'd ever see. And he said, I thought this day couldn't get any better. He said, but you just got up and told us your story and what you're doing. He said, Kim, I can finally go home now. I can go home to my wife and my daughter and my family and tell them I did something good over there. Ladies and gentlemen, you provide that opportunity for those veterans to show them that their service was appreciated and will never be forgotten. Their sacrifices will never be forgotten. I want to thank you for all that you do. And so I'm going to show you a little video. The Library of Congress asked me a few years ago to match up with a songwriter in Nashville. And the first idea was to write a song about my life, which we did. But then when she started asking me, why is it that I do what I do? Who is it that drives me? And who are my why? And when I told her about the veterans, the Vietnam veterans, specifically the ones that I met on the Old Glory Yellow Ribbon Honor Flight, we decided to co-write a song about those veterans, and we created this video.
buckled up. Pretty soon they touched down. This place to most of us is hallowed ground. They went to see Lincoln, took pics on the mount, paid respects to the greatest generation of all. And they knelt at the wall and they took off their caps for their Vietnam brothers who never came back. 58,178. They tried to count them and read every name. They're etched in our memories in history and stone. Thank you for all that you gave. Welcome home. Back on Old Glory, the stories poured out, things left unspoken for decades now. Oh, what a healing to let it all go. Oh, surrounded by brothers who know what you know. 58,178. For every soldier, this moment can't wait. You're etched in our memories, let history atone. Thank you for all that you gave. Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home. Their tongues were tired and their bodies were sore. And Old Glory she landed and they got up for the door. A crowd of 200,000 or more. Oh, with tears and great cheers for these heroes of war. 58,178. I wish my father could be here today. You're etched in our memories, our flesh and our bone. Thank you for all that you gave. Forgive us that it comes so late. Welcome home, 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 welcome home.
So before I close, maybe I should have put that at the very end, right? But before I close, there's something that and many of you know about the Vietnam War 50-year commemoration. There's the proclamation that was signed in 2012, and there's 2 paragraphs of the proclamation that I always say in my speech because I think they're important words that we should all hear. As we observe the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, we reflect with solemn reverence upon the valor of a generation that served with honor. We pay tribute to the more than 3 million servicemen and women who left their families to serve bravely, a world away from everything they knew and everyone they loved. From Mai Drang to Khe Sanh and Hue to Saigon and countless villages in between, they pushed through jungles and rice paddies, heat and monsoon, fighting heroically to protect the ideals that we hold dear as Americans. For more than a decade of combat over air, land, and sea, these proud Americans upheld the highest traditions of our armed forces. As a grateful nation, we honor the more than 58,000 patriots, their names etched in black granite, who sacrificed all they had and all they would ever know. We draw inspiration from the heroes who suffered unspeakably as prisoners of war, yet returned home with their heads held high. We pledge to keep the faith with those who were wounded and still carry the scars of war, seen and unseen. With the more than 1,600 of our service members still among the missing, we pledge as a nation to do everything in our power to bring these patriots home. In the reflection of the wall, we see the military family members and veterans who carry a pain that may never fade. May they find peace in knowing their loved ones endure not only in medals and memories, but in the hearts of all Americans who are forever grateful for their service, valor, and sacrifice. The Vietnam veterans are my why. They are my heroes. You all help them, and you help them understand that their service is appreciated and will never be forgotten. There is no greater honor than to wear the cloth of our nation. There is no greater need than those of our service members, veterans, caregivers, and survivors as they return home. And there is no greater obligation that we have as Americans to ensure that those veterans and their families have the services and resources that they've earned and deserve. God bless you. God bless America. God bless our men and women in uniform. God bless our Gold Star families, and thank you for having a positive impact on their lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Mitchell. Hold on, don't go away, Kim. Kim. Take your seats. Boy, if you didn't cry at that song, the hotel will check you out right now. I've known Kim for a little while, and she is an amazing servant of the people. And I wanted to get you a little gift on behalf of all of us here. It says, "Beat Navy, go Army." Well, Jim, you want to get a photo right here? Ladies and gentlemen, Kim Mitchell.
Thank you. Thank you.